engaging celebrity interviews, exciting updates from Christian filmmakers, movie reviews so you can choose your movies wisely, and so much more here on Faith on Film with Isaac Hernandez and Holly McClure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Faith on Film. How you doing, Holly?
Doing great, Isaac. Always good to be with you. And actually, this is one of those shows I love. We're going to talk about movies today.
Well, yeah, I love it. It's just going to be you and me. But, you know, this really gives us an opportunity to sometimes get into not just one movie, where we'll talk about one movie and have a guest, but we get to talk about a lot of different movies because there's a lot of movies coming out for the rest of this year, isn't there?
There is a lot of movies coming out for the rest of the year, especially with the holidays. That's when Hollywood takes their bigger films and puts them into the box office and screen. They're either trying to get up for Oscar awards, and that's why they're trying to get them in before the end of the year. But also, it's the time when people go to movies. So we selected 4 movies, the best Christmas pageant ever, Bonhoeffer, The Carpenter, and Conclave, that are PG-13 friendly, that people can, you know, it's not for kids necessarily, so listen to our talk about it. You'll find out what's good for kids, what's good for adults. But hey, these are movies that'll be in theaters if you have friends in town or family, something to go see. That's right. Which one do you want to start with? Let's do the best Christmas pageant ever.
The best Christmas pageant ever. Here you go.
Don't miss out. The annual Christmas pageant tickets are on sale now.
They're advertising it on TV now?
The pageant is an especially big deal this year. It's the 75th anniversary.
I want to give special mention to Grace for volunteering to direct it.
You did what?
Oh no. Did somebody die?
It's worse than that, son.
It's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever.
Oh no. It's the Hermans. Now. The Hermans are absolutely the worst kids in the history of the world.
What'd they do now, dear? Break another window?
Set something on fire?
Steal your lunch and then punch you for not having any candy? No, even worse. We're gonna be in your Bible play.
Herdmans in church.
Oh boy.
We take the pageant seriously. It's about community and tradition.
What do you all suggest, that I kick the Herdmans out of the church?
Yes.
I want to be Mary, and Ralph wants to be Joe.
And the angel of the Lord?
Ow!
The Herdmen shouldn't be here.
They're a poor influence.
You don't look like any Mary I've seen before.
Don't touch him. I'm happy to take over the part at any time.
I can't just kick him out.
I thought you all might be interested in one of my stuffs.
You never told me you visited the Herdmans.
I got the biggest ham for you guys. Is your mom home?
Not when the sun's up. What if the Hermans ruin this for you?
They probably will, but it's not about me. Jesus was born for the Herdmans as much as he was for us. We'll be missing the whole point of the story if we turn them away.
Now that's a pageant I'd actually like to see. Mother Mary puffing on a cigar, shepherds clobbering each other with their hooks. $5 say they burned down the manger.
You know, Holly, we actually did get a chance to interview, well, you got a chance to interview Dallas and Kevin about the movie, but it was such a short interview. Didn't really get a chance to talk much about the movie itself. So you know what? Tell us all about the movie and how you liked it. It was a very different kind of movie.
That's right. It was. And we actually both have seen this movie. We kind of had different reads on it. It's one of those movies at first I was like, okay, it's great. It's cute. You know, I wanted to love it. And it was like, but the more I've kind of thought about it, I think it's growing on me as the more, but I love is Dallas Jenkins, our friend, directed it, and Kevin Down, our friend, produced it. It's got Judy Greer, Lauren Graham. You guys, you know, Gilmore Girls, Lauren Graham. Pete Holmes, we interviewed him. He was also in the interview that we included in the show. And he's a comedian and does things. Let's see who else. Elizabeth Tavish from The Chosen.
That's right.
So you'll see her in this movie. And she's starting now to do more roles outside of The Chosen and be in more films, which I love. It's good seeing her. But you know what I love, guys? Like Beatrice Snyder the bratty girl who plays Mary, I ended up, the more I've thought about her, the more I've loved her. And actually, she is the pivotal meaning of the whole film. You know, for those of you guys, you just watch the trailer, you can kind of figure out it's the bad kids that, you know, want to take all the roles because they're hungry. You never see their parents. Isaac, what even bothered me more is you never, ever, ever see the parents. We don't ever know where they are. When the Pete goes over to drop off a turkey, she says, "Where's your mom?" And they go, "Well, she only comes out at night."
You never told me you visited the Herdmans.
I got the biggest ham for you guys. Is your mom home?
Not when the sun's up.
And you're like,
what is she, a vampire?
It's a little concerning or something else, you know, a reputable woman. But anyway, but it's like, you know, I was like, okay, and really, I really wanted to know where that mom was. So we never see the parents, but you know, but that's kind of the point. The kids are unparented and are hungry and are looking really just for affection and to be loved and needed. And what is church for? So the real reason for the season and the meaning of the movie, it's about a pageant, but it's so much more. And honestly, I've watched, you know, a couple of trailers and stuff. It is touching. A lot of people say they just cried. 99% Rotten Tomatoes review. So people, I mean, audience.
Wow.
The people love it, Isaac. The people are really getting great feedback from it. The book is 50 years old. So it was written at a different time. And you kind of see that reflected in the coloring, the 70s, the color. They didn't want to like label it, but you kind of get that impression with the clothing style, the colors, the fashion, the way things were done. It's that old, like Pete said, that old-timey Christian Christmas feeling. He said he loves set decorations. That was his favorite part of the world because it was like warmed him up. It made him think of Christmas, and it's so true. But I think overall, I mean, what would you say? Kids 6? Maybe 5, 6,
I would say so. Now, you said something very interesting. You said how you really love that girl, which basically she was the antagonist of the movie, right? She was the bad girl. And it just reminded me of a movie where we tend to like the antagonist, or in this case, let's say the bad person in the movie. It reminded me of Ocean's 11, where we were rooting for the criminals. You know, that's one thing that I thought of.
And that was the trend that came in the 90s, and it kind of started taking over, was the sub-hero, the one that's the anti-hero, that you're starting to root for the person who's robbing, but you like him because, like you said, Ocean's 8 and 11 and all those, you know, 11, 12, all those movies.
All the Oceans.
All the Oceans. You root for them because you like those guys, and they're kind of doing it. They're the Robin Hood, you know.
Exactly.
Well, Beatrice, you know, plays Imogene, I think is her name, and it's just this girl who's so brutal, such a bully. But she's this older sister. She's the protector. She's the family, and so through the story of playing Mary, she realizes how Mary's cradling that baby and Mary's protecting that baby, and she took on this whole understanding of what a responsibility it was for Mary to bring Jesus into this world. And that's the subliminal thing you get from the message, but that's what the adults will see. And I thought that was so touching, and it's what makes that character even warmer and sweeter. And, you know, all the kids, you know, as a parent and a grandparent, I would no more allow that brattiness, and they wouldn't have been the same, oh, okay. They would have had a whole different reaction from Holly, but, but it was funny.
But I think that's why I liked her also as in the movie is I have a tendency of seeing the good in people, even when they're really, and trust me, I've worked with really bad people, but I see that there's, even if it's just a little tiny bit of good in them, that's what I focus on. And I think that's why I liked this particular character, because I somehow felt there is something good there and she just needs it to come out. And the way to get it out is by loving on her. And I don't want to give the movie for those who haven't seen it yet, but it really, I enjoyed the movie a lot.
And it's accepting. It was accepting them. And they were just hungry, and they came in, and they were the bad. But the kids, and the town didn't want to accept them. No one wanted him there. The church didn't want him. Nobody wanted him in this play. It was going to ruin everything.
What do you all suggest, that I kick the Herdmans out of the church?
Yes. But it was that acceptance, and it was like, what's church for? And what's the real reason for this season and doing that? So you will see all of that in the film. And again, it's coming out. And by the time people see this show, it may already be out. And it will definitely be one of those that I'm sure every Christmas it's going to come around and be one of those Christmas classics.
Very much so, just like the movie Elf that I watch every year. And speaking of Elf, should we move on to maybe Bonhoeffer? Not that one has to do with the other, but apparently the director of Bonhoeffer, who we're really hoping to have soon on the show, also was the producer of Elf.
He was the writer and producer of Bonhoeffer, Todd Carmenicki. And that's a pretty big deal to write and direct that big of a film.
Yeah.
And so we'll be interviewing him about that. But, Bonhoeffer, yes, and he did produce Elf, so he did have that in common. And actually his wife, who he's married to, starred in Elf in several of his films. Very interesting guy. He wrote Sully, the movie Sully, and he's other films. So he's a prolific writer, director, producer in Hollywood. Bonhoeffer, it's been a little controversial because the family has come back and said some things in it aren't quite what the real story was, but the way that it is portrayed, and that's why I'm eager to kind of ask him about that, and get the behind the scenes. But for those of you who are wondering what it's about, he was this preacher who not only evangelized the Christian Germans in the Christian church, he came to America. And the unusual thing is he came to America and connected with a Black American and got into the gospel part of the Black church and really loved the passion and the preaching and how they worship Jesus and how they worship the Lord. And he, coming from a very dry German culture where that just really wasn't part of their worship service, I love how they showed that he went back and tried to incorporate some of that lifeblood and passion into his ministry. And at the same time, the Nazis, in Germany are overtaking his country or warring with his own country. So he saw that and against the Jews. So again, he's in America. He's at a place that they show where he goes with a friend of his to a hotel to check in. The guy won't check in the black guy to the hotel. And because Bonhoeffer was with him and tried to check in, he gets hit and insulted. And that was his first reality of prejudice and discrimination. So he has that introduction in America. Then he goes to Germany, back home, and then he sees it happening to the Jews in his own country. So there's that whole fight for, wait a minute, and fighting against what's happening with the Jews and trying to rally the German church to protect the Jewish people and take up for them, which at that time was very hard. And it goes into a whole war theme. So it has faith elements to it and faith-based elements, Christian elements to it. But it really is about what was going on in Nazi Germany. And there's some hard scenes to watch in there.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a look at the trailer so people have a little bit of an idea of what we're talking about.
Hitler has captured the nation's imagination, Dietrich.
Bravery is a rare commodity. You will go to England as our spy.
What good is the church if it doesn't speak for the victims of the state?
The church's job is to kindle peace, peacefully.
Oh, you mean silently?
I need you to understand that your life will not be the same after I speak these words. We have devised a plot to assassinate the Führer.
Guide our hands. Guide our trembling hands.
God sent Germany a true savior!
Our silence in the face of evil is itself evil.
Words aren't words anymore, Dietrich. They're nooses, bullets. This is a trigger that cannot be unpulled.
Will God forgive us if we do this? Will He forgive us if we don't?
Now, Holly, this is another one of those movies now that really can be geared towards men. I think men will really enjoy this movie because it's not a little love story thing. It's got war. It's got a man stepping up and in essence wanting to protect the Jews. It's a man doing it.
It is, and it was a godly man doing it. And
godly
I
man.
Showed the fact that he stood up for his faith, and he got bolder and bolder as it went on. and he paid the price. Ultimately, he paid the price with his life.
Yeah,
you
he
know,
did.
it was a sacrifice. But I mean, he stood for what God was telling him to do. And that's what and especially with today, you know, when you see this socialism of Nazis and what it did, the socialism to Germany and to the Christian church and those people, what is it doing today, folks? I mean, we're in the midst of, we have been in an election, and how tumultuous it has been, and how you think, well, isn't it obvious on that side it's something, and isn't it obvious on that side, da-da-da-da. But I'm so surprised how socialism has crept into our politics, our church, our churches. There's been a lot of discussion about, if you're a Christian, how can you vote this way? How can you vote for this, this, and that? You know, if you're a Christian. So the politics has really been bred into our culture nowadays, and we're seeing it all over the place. So this movie kind of reflects what was going on then, and you can see that in what's going on now.
I remember when I was in school and we were learning all about, you know, the whole Nazi thing and the World War II and all that, and I always kind of felt like, how could people really fall for that? How is it that they actually allowed this man to do this? That could never happen. Look, it's happening right here in our own country.
Isaac, I so agree with you. I used to think that too. You thought, oh, we would never have done that. We would never have been cruel.
Right.
We would have taken up for them. We would have hid them. You know, like what was her name? Boom.
Yeah, Corrie ten Boom.
Corrie ten Boom. We would have hidden them like we did. I always thought, I would be like her. You know, well, it took a lot to be like her. It was pretty brave to be like her in those days. Would we be like her now? I mean, I don't know. But I agree with you. It's one of those things you're just going, how can that happen today? And I look at the subtleties of what's happening today, and we're seeing all the movie stars and all the, you know, the glamorous people supporting one side, and you know, it's so obvious, you know, what Hollywood is going towards, and with the socialism and how they're leaning against this Marxist mentality. I'm sorry, but they are. I'm not making that up. It's true, and we're seeing it. So. Yes, folks, it's real, and it's happening today. But I do love the manly men. And speaking of manly men...
Manly men, there's a movie. You told me about it. You've seen it, I believe? I'd never heard of it.
I came out of a movie the other night, and I saw it at the movie theater. I actually went to see another movie where Isaac interviewed the guy from The Boy on the Mountain, and we interviewed that. I thought, I want to go see what it's like. So I saw that movie, and I noticed this other movie, The Carpenter. And it was starting a half hour later. I'm like, okay, you know, I looked up, and it said... you know, a Viking son is raised by a carpenter and goes to apprentice with Jesus. And I'm like, wait, what? I was laughing, going, this has got to be a joke. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go see this just because it's got to be a joke. So I went in to see The Carpenter. And Isaac, I love this movie. I loved it. Let's show the trailer so people appreciate what we're talking about.
All right.
Where are you from?
Cana.
You don't look like you're from Cana.
I know where I'm from.
You have to weaken them all, and you win the fight. You cannot fight only with your fists. You must use this organ, too.
You're gonna be Schwar's champion fighter. Just don't lose focus.
Use whatever time you have to train and heal.
Take him out!
No distractions.
What do you do for work?
I'm an apprentice.
Oh, for who?
Come. Follow me.
You think it's true what people say about him?
He's not like anyone I've ever worked with.
Is Carpenter paying you?
He takes care of what I need.
There are many good life lessons to be learned from sport. If this is your gift, can you cultivate it to positively affect those around you? To let your light shine?
Jerusalem Invitational, 400 denarii.
None of this is ours if you don't keep fighting.
For that money, I would jump in the fight.
You really enjoy it?
It's not just the fight. It's training, walking out of each fight knowing that I defeated whatever they put in front of me.
You are aware of his miracles?
He's a carpenter, son of a carpenter.
No. Look further.
So why help me? I'm nobody.
You're somebody to me.
Okay, Holly. Now I know I've mentioned this before. You know, this confession that I'm a manly man. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm a manly man, but I've never been into the fighting. You know, the boxing and the MMA and all that stuff. But this piqued my interest.
Well, I watched the movie, and while I'm watching, I literally pulled my phone up and Googled, was there boxing in Jesus' day? Because I couldn't believe. I'm like, okay, if they stretched this so out, and I found out there was. It was a sport. It was a Roman sport. Boxing was a Roman sport. And this movie is about this kid when he's young. He gets, you know, his parents are killed. He gets abandoned, picked up, and this man raises him as his own with a brother, his stepbrother Levi. And it turns out they're real brothers in real life. It's Cameron Craig, I'm going to read this. Cameron Craig and Colin Krebs. Okay, they're brothers in real life, but they look completely different. One's red hair, one's dark hair. And then how they're raised, and their father's a carpenter, and he's raising this town. And then the father dies from an injury, but before he dies, he says, take your mother to Nazareth and go find the carpenter there. And a carpenter, go apprentice with that carpenter while you're fighting. Now, the deal is, this guy was winning in his area all the fights, but the bigger fight was in Nazareth, and then the really big fight was in Rome. So he went to Nazareth, started becoming known there, and met Jesus in the year 29 AD so that he could apprentice with him in 29 AD. And during that year, they show his struggle and how he becomes a famous fighter, and then how he finds a woman he wants to marry who had already been married to her husband who died. So it was a sweet story of, you know, bringing people together. And then how he goes for the big fight and Jesus encourages them. But then Jesus goes away. And so he tells them something when he goes away, which I don't want to give away because it's such a big part of the movie. But he gives them an assignment before he leaves. He said, I will contact you in 3 years for this assignment. And so he tells them what he wants them to make and do. And then he's gone. They show his rise to fame. It's just such a good movie. I'm telling you. I was just so surprised how in-depth it was and how it was, you know, it's kind of like when you watch The Chosen. Okay, some of those things are real, they happen in the Bible, and some of them Dallas has taken liberty with and created characters, and you're like, okay, that wasn't a real character, but I'll buy it because it's for that time. That's what this is like. And I'm sorry, I loved it. It's got to be PG-13. Sure it is, because of all the fighting. But I mean, there's some really good fights in there. Did you watch them?
Well, yeah, and it's funny because you say it's a sweet story, and I'm thinking, where's sweet? My goodness, what I saw is guy punching the other guy in the face, but again,
guys are gonna love it. Guys are gonna love it because it is not soft fighting. It is like real combat fight. And in those days, you know, they were challenged. So they had big guys who had lifted weights and who had done. It wasn't like the little. And you know what I love? I love the fact that Jesus had big hands and muscles. He was a carpenter, Isaac.
That's right.
He'd been doing carpentry work. Okay, and it's Holly. But he was going around Nazareth repairing things for people because he was the carpenter. So he would repair a gate or a door or help stuff. It never occurred to me that Jesus as a carpenter was like using the skill and going around the neighborhood and helping people. Yeah. I thought that was kind of a refreshing outlook and take on it. So I liked it.
Yeah, and that's what I've always liked about the Chosen is it really expands more on the personality and in essence the career, if you will, of Christ outside of being our Savior. So I'm gonna look at it, Holly. Okay.
Now this would not be. It's not for little kids. I don't think it's.
No.
No, it's because it's the fighting. Now, if your kids into kickboxing or boxing, okay, they're gonna love it. But you know, it's not into and it's not like brutal death scenes or anything. But it is definitely fighting. So if it's not like a little kid, take this in a Jesus story. But I think your older kids will appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, now, there is a movie that I personally liked. I did go see it, only because I really enjoy watching other cultures that are completely different than ours, especially when it deals with our faith. You know, I was born a Protestant. I've been a Protestant all my life. But I'm very intrigued with the whole Catholic mentality, the whole Catholic culture. And this movie that I saw dealt with how they pick a pope, and I thought it was very interesting to watch.
I watched Conclave is the name of the movie. It is rated PG. Very much an adult, mature audience only because it's it's a lot of dialogue. Okay, there is a little bit of action that happens, but it's that intrinsic, like he said, look into choosing and selecting the Pope. And so it's a lot of dialogue. It's not a kid, they'll be bored, and even younger teens will be bored. But if you were Catholic and you were interested in how the Pope was chosen, if you're not Catholic, but it's like Isaac said, you're still interested in that, very amazing. It's got, we'll play the trailer, but look for Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Carlos Diaz, I'm trying to think who else is in this. Isabel Rossellini. Okay, remember Ingrid Bergman, folks? It's her daughter, Isabel Rossellini. She's in it. So let's watch the trailer.
All right.
The Pope is dead. The throne is vacant.
The conclave begins now. We're about to choose the most famous man in the world.
And 1.25 billion souls watching.
I'd say this is a pretty fair vision of hell.
Well, don't be blasphemous, Ray. Hell arrives tomorrow when we bring in the cartons.
No sane man would want the papacy.
Some of our colleagues seem to want it.
Another cardinal has just turned up. He was never on our list.
He has to be an imposter.
You look anxious. Everything under control.
Where did you get this?
The Holy Father was spying on all of us.
You should be careful, Thomas.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
What did you discuss with the Holy Father in that final meeting?
Arrangements were made in Paris.
I should pretend this conversation never took place.
But it has taken place. This is a conclave. It's not a war.
It is a war. And you have to commit to a side.
Why did the Holy Father, in his last official act as Pope, choose me to run this conclave?
The reasons would become clear soon enough.
Well, Holly, definitely a different kind of movie there. Again, I loved it just because of the whole culture that I've never been a part of.
Right, and for a lot of Catholics, you're going to enjoy this movie again because it's part of your church. But it's an interesting ending. I just want to say this. Very unusual, different, not what you're going to expect, not what you think is going to happen, ending. So it's actually a thriller. It's dramatic. It's got some bombing in there. So this isn't just a little peaceful film. It's got a lot of stuff in it. But again, let us know what you think. But it's fun today, Isaac. I love talking about
it. Was films. Speaking of ending, we've pretty much reached the ending of our show.
So we have, but we've given great movies and information for people to check out and go see with your families and friends over the next few weeks, and we hope you enjoy all these movies.
Absolutely, and don't forget to visit our website, faithonfilmtv.com. That's faithonfilmtv.com. All right, until next week, take care.
Bye-bye. God bless.
Write to us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film TV. Also, go to our YouTube channel, Faith on Film TV, and hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications on our latest Faith on Film shows.